We're continuing Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, Hilchot Shabbat, and we are up to Siman Resh Peichet, Seif Tet, and Daf Sabech Vav Amud Aleph, going to Amud Bet of your regular prince of Mishna Berura. Maran writes, En so'akim velo matri'im bo al shum tzara. We don't scream out bepeh, and we don't communally cry out on any tzara, any of the issues that communally could be facing a community. Chutz mi tzarat hamezonot shetzoakim alea bepeh b'Shabbat velo b'shofar, that we do daven publicly for the issue of mezonot, of the parnasah of Klal Yisrael, but do not blow shofar on it, for it on Shabbat. Ve'chen ir sheikufua nasin o nahar, or a city that has been surrounded by bandits, by thieves, or is in danger of being flooded by a nahar, usfina metorefet bayam, or a ship that is standing to be sunk in the sea. All of those we of course publicly and openly daven for. Ve'afilu al yachid hanirdaf mipenei anasin, even on an individual that is being chased by dangerous people, by thieves, by bandits, or ruach ra'ah. For all of that, zoakin umitchanenin betfilot b'Shabbat. You daven. This is something that happened when they had one of the people in East, I think Iran. They had him as captive, and they wanted to hang him. That's the whole world was davening for him, even on Shabbat, for such a thing, or the hostages and so on and so forth would be an example of this, that publicly we daven on Shabbat for them, aval and tokin, but we don't blow shofar for it. Elaim ken tokin lekabetz ha'am la'azor la'achehem u'la'tzilam. If you have an issue that you need quickly to gather the community for physical help to save people, imagine right now, unfortunately, this should be a zchut for people who have been affected by the current fire that's burning right now. Imagine if that would be Chas v'Shalom on Shabbat, and you need to blow shofar in a little small city or village to make everyone aware of the fact that there is fire, and they should come and save the people that are being affected by it. Then you do whatever needs to be done. If you need to blow shofar to get people to come out and help, that's something that you would do as well. Again, the shofar and trumpets were things that communally were used by the gabayim, by the heads of the community, to gather people. This already starts from the time of the Torah itself. It says they would have their trumpets made out of silver that would be used for gathering the people of the community as well. So in that type of scenario, you would be tokea b'shofar as well. So says the Shulchan Aruch, nirdaf mipenei ruach ra'ah she'amru lav davka. This, a person that is being chased by dangerous elements, is not just by ruach ra'ah. Du'adin lechol chole sheyesh bo sakanat hayom. Any sick person that today his life is in danger, zoakim umitchanenin, we daven, we scream out to Hashem. Vechen na'agu lomar, and the minhag has evolved to say, metzalim b'Shabbat al cholim ha'mesukanim sakanat hayom. The Rama adds, vechen mutar levarech ha'choleh. Not only we daven publicly for them, but we also give a Mishna Berura, a public Mishna Berura, for anyone that has a sakana bo bayom, which would be also mutar. Again, before we mentioned that you go to a chole, any type of chole, you could tell him Shabbat yimin lizok urfa kerova lavo. In this case, it will be obviously even more open. The Mishna Berura writes, "Aval im mishe'eno mesukan," a person that is not in a life-threatening situation, lo, we don't do that. When we do Mishna Berura for a sick person that is not in a life-threatening situation, we say Shabbat yimin lizok, as we said before. Urfa kerova lavo. But by a person that's in a life-threatening situation, we don't need to say any of those things. You have a regular Mishna Berura, give him a bracha in public, and everyone says Amen. And that's bevadai is mutar. And same is for a person that is giving birth and has complications in childbirth. That is considered a life-threatening situation, of course. And we do say a Mishna Berura for them. The abichlal mesukenet is considered also life-threatening. V'chen hayoledet toch shavua rishon, a person that just gave birth within the first week, still danger has not been eliminated completely. You can have chas v'shalom hemorrhaging and so on and so forth. These are things that happen up to today still with all the sophisticated medical facilities that we have. Still, there are people who hemorrhage and people whose lives are in danger after childbirth. So therefore, that's something that for sure could be done still today. Says the Shulchan Aruch, we're starting Siman Resh Pei Tet now, the halachot of the Seudah of the morning of Shabbat, Seudat Shacharit. Now, we mentioned before that a person is obligated to eat 3 Seudot on Shabbat. 2 of them are a full-fledged obligation, and one, the Seudah Shlishit, because of the machloket surrounding it, is still his obligation, but it has specific halachot related to it. For instance, one that we discussed already before is if you missed saying Retzeh, you don't go back to bench again. Whereas in the Seudah of the night or Seudah of the morning of Shabbat, if you forgot to say Retzeh, you would have to go back and fix that. If you already finished the benching, you would have to go and say over the Birkat Hamazon over again. Says the Shulchan Aruch, Yiyeh shulchano aruch umita musat yafa. The table should be set already before you come from the shul, and they used to have beds that they would lay on to eat the seudah. There were beds and then small tables for every person in front of them. That's how the setup was. So the bed should be set properly, the table should be set and ready, just like the Seudah of Leil Shabbat of the Friday night. You say the Kiddush on wine, Borei Priya Gefen, Vehu Nikra Kiddush Araba, and it's called in the language of Chazal, Kiddush Araba, V'achar kach yitol yadav, afterwards you wash and you do Hamotzi. Again, we discussed this before in Siman Resh Ayin Aleph, that the Rama already said the minhag in Ashkenaz was they would wash and then say Kiddush and Hamotzi. Again, the minhag of the Sfaradim certainly is that we say Kiddush, drink the wine, and then only after then we wash Nitilat Yadayim and say Hamotzi. Now this is important to note that the kavod of the Seudah of the morning is even more important than the Seudah of the night. The Kedusha of Shabbat is an increasing Kedusha. So the Seudah of the morning is more important than the Seudah of night, and the Kedusha of Shabbat afternoon is higher than the Kedusha of even Shabbat morning. It's just that the Seudah Shlishit is not necessarily a full-fledged obligation, just even though that it is an obligation, but it's not the same level obligation as the Seudah of morning, so therefore we don't compare the Seudos, but the Kedusha of Shabbat itself is Holech V'Gadel. It goes, increasingly grows bigger, so therefore Seudah of morning should be respected more than Seudah of night. For instance, if you have 2 chalot, one for Seudah of night, one for Seudah of morning, which one the bigger challah goes for which one? It goes for Seudah of the morning because it is more uh, respectable. Now, if you have a better wine, what do you use it for? You should use it for Suda of night, because the Kiddush of Leil Shabbat is more important than the Kiddush of the morning of Shabbat. Why is that? Because the Kiddush of Leil Shabbat is the Oraita. We learn from the Pasuk that you should respect Shabbat and separate it from the mundane activities of a weekday as the Shabbat enters and as the Shabbat exits. So simply understanding the Kiddush of Friday night for sure, and even Havdalah would be a biblical concept, whereas the Kiddush Rabbah, the Kiddush of Shabbat morning, is Midrabanan. So therefore, the Seudah itself is more important, but not the Kiddush. Now, Rabbi Yitzchak Palaji, he brings from the Zohar HaKadosh that the Seudah of the Leil Shabbat also is more important than Seudah of the morning. So we don't want to complicate things, but the psak that we have, normally speaking, is that the Seudah of the morning of Shabbat is more important than the Seudah of night. Fine. What that again technically means is make sure to have something new, something geschmack for the Seudah of Shabbat morning, and if you have a better challah, you leave it for the morning as well. Says the Mishna Berura over here. ומיתה מוסעת, היינו מערב שבת או כדי שישן בה בשבת, כדי שהוא בחדר שדר שם, ואיכה ביזיון, אם לא יסיע המיטות. Says the Mishna Berura, even the beds that you go to sleep on, if they're in the same area that you eat, right, you want it to be nice, so you want everything to be set, nice, you don't want to come into a balagan when you want to eat Seudat Shabbat. Everything should be musa'at, it should be set, and the beds are made. It looks nice. Says the Mishna Berura, ומה שכתב מפה פרוצה, עין ליל בסימן רש עין א', Mishna Berura, he explains what it means to have a proper set table, and one of the reasons that we have a tablecloth on the Shabbat table is not just because you want it to be nice, because their tables were not as nice as our tables nowadays necessarily. So a white cloth on top would cover a lot of imperfections, but it's also because it would serve as the layer beneath the challah, which is also covered on top, like the man that was covered from the bottom and from the top. That's what the Mishna Berura explains over there. And you say the Kiddush, many have the psukim that they say before, Shamru b'nei Yisrael et Shabbat, that's what the Shabbat, right? Zachar Yom HaShabbat l'Kadashot. Different communities have different minhagim. Again, the Ashkenazim usually just say, Al ken brach Hashem et Yom HaShabbat v'Kadashot, Sabri Maranan, Bar Priagafen, and Yalla. Sephardim, they take everything very seriously, so they have like about 5 hours of psukim beforehand, right? That they say already from Im Tashim Shabbat Raglecha. Every community should follow their own minhag when it comes to what psukim are said before and how to conduct the kiddush. But nevertheless, the kiddush does not have a second bracha like the night. There's no mekadesh Shabbat. That's the mitzvah d'oraita of mekadesh Shabbat. Here you don't have that. You just say the bracha of Geffen, and you're good to go. Says the Shulchan Aruch, you should also be mindful not to drink anything beforehand, right? This kiddush has to be also kiddush b'makom seudah, v'yivsa lelechem mishneh, and you going to say hamotzi on 2 breads, just like the night. Al pi Kabbalah, as again what we mentioned before, that you have 12 loaves of bread, or at least 4. Keneged Yud Kei Vav Kei. Same thing would be on Shabbat morning as well. V'gam ze hakidush sarich sheyeh bimkom seudah. This kiddush of the morning also has to be bimkom seudah, where you are actually having your seudah. So you can't just say kiddush at shul and then go home and say hamotzi. You can't do that. You either have to eat what's considered the minimum of seudah, or mezonot, kezait of mezonot, over here in the shul, to be yotze kiddush, or you have to say kiddush at home, where you are actually having your seudah. So you can't have kiddush at shul, so you listen to kiddush and you go get some poppers and some vegetables and salad. You can't do that, because you did not eat anything that's considered seudah. Poppers is not considered seudah. You have to have either bread or mezonot. So that's something important to keep in mind as well. V'shelo yitom, and also you have to bear in mind that you cannot eat anything before, you can't taste even anything before kiddush after you're done with your davening. We spoke about this, is it shacharit or musaf, but be as it may, when you have completed your davening, you can't even have a little sip of water before you say kiddush.
You said shacharit or musaf.
Yeah, because that's a fair amount of machloket around where exactly is the chiyuv chal. When does it take effect? Is it after shacharit or after musaf? So we mentioned before that lechatchila after shacharit, a person should not be eating anything or drinking anything. That bring candies around the shul should not be eating it lechatchila, because you're getting yourself into a machloket. Again, there are some communities who have a clear minhag that they do eat things between shacharit and musaf. But lechatchila, if a person is not sick or is not the chazan or bal koreh, they should not eat after shacharit already without saying kiddush. But even if they said kiddush after shacharit before musaf, they would need another kiddush after musaf for sure. But for our practical purposes, after you have davened shacharit and musaf, then of course you cannot eat or taste even a sip of water without saying kiddush. That is the same halacha at night, and same is during the day as well. Umiu, says the Shulchan Aruch, lishtod mayim baboker kodem tefillah mutar. Of course, having water, some water before tefillat shacharit is mutar. You can't eat seudah before, you can't eat cholent before, or kugel before, because before davening every day, not just Shabbat, every day before davening you cannot eat, right? So tea or coffee is during the course of the generations have been accepted as normal things people have in the morning just to wake themselves up. So bottom line halacha is mutar to have whatever is considered a regular drink, a hot drink for people, but not cappuccino, again, not milk. But if you have a little tea or coffee and you can't have black coffee, so you want to put a few drops of milk inside to make it normal, to be able to eat it, that's fine as well. So that you can have before Seudah, but not a full-fledged Seudah. You can't sit and eat cholent before Shaharit of Shabbat, or taste some kugel, unless a person is sick, not feeling well. That would be prohibited. Even women have this restriction. They call mili the Shabbat ish isha shavin, because on Shabbat, men and women are equal in Hilchot Shabbat. We'll B'ezrat Hashem discuss this last piece a little bit more and continue on Seif Bet in the days to come. Hazak Baruch.